What is happening, people? Scarface Personal here, back with another one of these weekly live shows on YouTube every Monday, 8 p.m. Today, I'm joined by two fabulous guests. Firstly, Ben, how you doing?
Very good, thank you, mate. Very, very good. Good to be chatting to you after a win.
It absolutely is very good. So much better feeling though after we've won. And first time on the show, Jaay, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Obviously, first time on here, and it's coming on after a win, so can't be too unhappy, can I?
Can't be too bad. Thank you very much for giving me your time this evening. If you are listening live on YouTube, don't forget to smash that subscribe button to get to 2K by the end of the season is the aim. Slightly ambitious, but I do believe that we can get there. Smash the like button as well if you are listening. It's free to do so and it helps more people see it and we can enhance the conversations. Get involved with the comments throughout today's show as well. Your questions that we'll get to put towards the panel at the end of the show. If you're listening on a podcast platform, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, don't forget to give us a follow and a 5-star review. A lot of you people listen there, so thank you very much. But let's crack straight into it. And Ben, I'm going to come to you first. So before the Palace game, what were your thoughts on the lineup? Because obviously a doggy comes back in, Sar's benched, and we're without as well Richarlison and Porro through injury.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, really. I don't think the most surprising exclusion out of them was Sar, just because of how important he has been to us. And I think his importance has probably been actually more heightened after he came back from the African Cup of Nations, because I do think we missed him while he was out. And I think the performances that he put in after that, especially the Brighton game, where he got us back in the game, changed that game for us. So that was a bit surprising. Also, we haven't seen a midfield yet of Bentancur, Basuma and Maddison from the start of the game. So it was kind of coupled with that excitement to see what that could look like in terms of how it works, but also a little bit of nervousness around Sar not playing. I think in terms of the fullback situation, obviously it was great to have a doggy back. With Porro, we sort of talked about it on our pod about whether who is the best kind of player to come in and replace him in the short term while we're without Pedro Porro. And obviously against Wolves, Emerson didn't exactly have the most comfortable display. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise to see him continue with Emerson, because again, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we'll get onto the Villa game, Porro should be back next week. So it's only really a short-term issue. But yeah, and it was good. It was good, obviously, to see. I was a bit worried about Sonny through the middle, given the fact that I think the way he sort of operates as a striker isn't necessarily, his game isn't necessarily geared up to playing against those kind of low block teams who are going to play through at the back and try and be physical. So I was slightly worried about that, but obviously, again, ended up having a really solid display as a number 9. So it was good to see Werner come back in as well on the left-hand side. He had a great game, but I was a bit worried about how he would set up without Richarlison, despite the fact that he hasn't had the best couple of weeks. But yeah, we got through it.
We absolutely did, and we will dive a bit deeper into that win as we go on throughout today's show. And Jaay, keen to get your thoughts on the lineup before the game.
I was very vocal about it on Twitter. I still, and I'll stick to my guns on it, believe Bentancur come back a bit too early, especially after he's not had the greatest. His last 2 games, he's been a bit below par. But I said at the start of the game, if one of the players I don't think in our squad you can drop at the moment is Sar. I believe the legs he gives us in midfield, the relationship he's built with Basuma alone. I get, obviously, Ange Postecoglou's first choice for a midfield was Sar, Bentancur, Basuma and Maddison. But yeah, I believe the Bentancur's got to get a few more minutes in the tank before he should be starting. But overall, the lineup, you can't fault it, especially with the news of Richarlison being out for 3 weeks. It's just one of them games that we sort of had to use what we did, and luckily we got the result.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I've got many notes down for the first half because it's a bit boring. So we'll come to you first, Ben. Half-time was 0-0. Why couldn't we break Palace down?
I think, there's been a lot of chat around like low blocks, and, Tottenham have always kind of historically tended to struggle. I mean, even under Pochettino, I remember it was a constant topic of conversation about why, when teams sit back deep against us, why can we not break them down? But I think you've seen plenty of examples of other teams in the league, teams that are above us in the league, finding it hard, because I think the reason for that is that it's tough. When teams sit 10 men behind the ball, Palace have got good defenders as well. It's not as if, because I feel like sometimes you've got teams that will go to a 3 at the back, go to a 5 at the back, to try and make themselves more defensively solid. But actually, I think it ends up exposing how poor these teams are defensively sometimes anyway. Like I've seen United try and go to a 5 at points. And I think adding another defender to the mix doesn't make you more solid. It actually makes it more chaotic at points. But Palace, under a new manager, they're naturally going to be more well set up anyway. They've always been a historically quite decent team. Obviously missing Mark Gay with that, but they've got that new manager bounce. They're going to want to make it difficult for us. They did exactly that. They were never going to try and play into our hands. They made it difficult enough for us when we went to Sellers Park, and we got that 2-1 victory up there towards the start of the season. I think as well, part of it is probably the likes of Maddison still growing back to full fitness, getting that sharpness back, getting kind of the minutes in the legs. I actually thought in terms of the second half, and we'll go on to talk about that, Maddison's influence on the game grew so much more in the second half. I think first half he was really trying to sort of get us on the front foot, but he wasn't being necessarily afforded as much space as he would have liked. He did have a key hand in a couple of the good moves that we did put together, but he didn't have as much influence as he did in the second half. But unfortunately, it is hard. And I think the positive and negative thing about that first half was the fact that we were able to fashion a very, very good chance against a team that was sitting in and making us difficult for us. Unfortunately for Tottenham, it probably just fell to the wrong person in Timo Werner. And if that goal goes in, what was that, half an hour into the game, maybe 25 minutes into the game, the second half is completely different. But, again, Tottenham, I think, have won more points maybe than any other team from losing positions. And again, we found a way. And I think as long as we're finding a way, that's the important thing. It's easy to get caught up in sometimes. It's like, why are we starting games slowly? It's like, but as long as you're finishing strong, that's what's important. And we know that we're not where we are. We're not where we were, at the start of the season quite yet. But I think from what we saw in the second half, I think that was probably the closest that we've been to it, maybe since the Newcastle game at home. I just think we've got this incredible ability, like not many other teams in the league have, to really suffocate teams and put teams under pressure in 10, 15-minute spells and just make it too much for them. And that's exactly what we did on Saturday. I think as well, I was talking about this on the Fighting Cock, about the fact that you look at the Manchester derby yesterday. I know Manchester United aren't in form. I know they're struggling, but they went and made it very difficult for City. It ended up being the same scoreline as our game. This is Manchester City as well. We're talking about arguably the best team in Europe. They were finding it hard to break through Man United's low block, even with the quality of players that they do have. And then it's up to the individual players and the brilliance that they have got in the likes of Foden to conjure something up. And it was the same for us. And the Premier League is the most competitive it's ever been. It's never going to be that easy week in, week out. And we found a way. So that's the most important thing.
Absolutely is. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Jaay, coming to you, moving on to some positive stuff. No, forget that. Moving on to some negative stuff. First goal of the game went to Crystal Palace, 59th minute from Eze. We saw Bentancur lost the ball, then commit the foul to give away the free kick. Is there anything we could have done better for you? Like at the free kick, some people said there wasn't enough people in the wall, Vicario's positioning.
I mean, it has to fall onto Vic. A goalkeeper sets his wall in football. Nobody tells him how many to put in. Nobody tells him where to position. To concede at the post of where you're stood, I think, is poor goalkeeping. Obviously, I'm not saying Vic's a bad goalkeeper, because this season he's stopped games from being 7-8-0, i.e. against Brighton. But I think that one has to fall onto him. And I think it again comes back to Bentancur's match fitness, where his decision making, I think he had a very stable first half. Second half, he did look a bit off the ball. And then to make the tactical foul, did he need to make it? I mean, it's ifs and buts. But I mean, it's Eze. We know how good he is and how dangerous he is. And I think that if we hadn't have conceded that goal, we may have gone on for another 30, 40 minutes until the end of the game, struggling to try and break them down. It really hit on, because Ange obviously took out Bentancur, put Maddison in the deeper role, and brought on Johnson, who I've not been his biggest fan, and I've questioned by far, was he worth the price tag that we paid for him? And at the moment, you can't find a fault wrong with him. He's just constantly pressing, and he seems to be growing more and more and more in confidence. And I believe that, do I still think he's going to live up to a £50 million player? It's hard to see, because there's not many that are worth it. But, I mean, he come on and he really changed our whole system after we conceded that first goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, coming back back to you. This is what I was going to say earlier. Moving on to the positive stuff. This actually is this time. No false alarm. 63rd minute, Johnson comes on for Bentancur. Were you surprised, firstly, that Bentancur was the one taken off?
No, not really. To be fair, I thought Basuma was the better option in midfield in that game. Anyway, I thought that was Basuma's best game that we've seen in a while. And I think if one of them was going to be sacrificed, it probably was going to be Bentancur. I agree with Jaay in the sense that I thought he was actually not too bad in the first half, but second half, I think again it just in terms of I think it's just his match fitness and his sharpness. And I think going back to the Eze goal, I think he had to make that foul just because when you watch it back. If he doesn't make that foul, even though Eze's got 2 or 3 Spurs defenders in front of him, he probably still gets a shot off at goal. And then what happens from then on is just unfortunate. Vicario, maybe we should have had another man in the wall, and I agree with Jaay in what you're saying in the sense that keeper's side, you don't expect them to be beat, but there was a lot of power on that free kick and a lot of whip from Eze. So I can't look at Vicario too much. But in terms of the way then we turned it around after that, I thought that was the right substitution because I think we needed to. We were actually getting a lot of joy out on the wings, something that we weren't necessarily getting against Wolves. And I did question the substitutions that Ange made in that game to try and stretch it because Wolves were so compact and we just weren't going to find the room in behind them. And that's not necessarily how the goal came with Johnson's involvement. It was down to his pressing and down to his tenacity, which I agree with Jaay. Like I've always stood up for Johnson and I've never really understood the level of criticism that he does get. But I think there's a difference between criticism and some of the, let's put it bluntly, abuse that he has been getting from Spurs fans. And I do think you have to take the price tag away from it because he can't control that. He's a young player who's come for a lot of money, but unfortunately, like 47 million or 50 million or whatever he cost is the going rate for a lot of young British talent these days. You're not going to get much more out of 50 million. You're not going to get much change out of 50 million if you're buying a decent level Premier League midfielder or attacker, whoever it is, with a lot of potential. And I think despite the fact that in recent weeks, Johnson has he's come on and scored the winner against Brighton, he's come on and scored against Brentford, I don't actually think he had as much impact in those games. I don't think his impact on the game was necessarily married up with the goal that he scored, if that makes sense. I don't think they necessarily correlated. I think he was just right place, right time. And that's what he is great at, his movement into the box. But I actually think against Crystal Palace at the weekend, obviously he got 2 assists, but his overall performance, he just looks so much sharper, so much more confident. And he forces that mistake. Yes, he gets a little bit lucky with the goal because you look at Anderson doesn't deal with that very well. He really doesn't. But Johnson does get a bit lucky in the sense that he goes to make the first tackle, it ricochets back to him, and then he goes again and makes the second one. But from what happens from then on, he gets his head up. It's a perfect ball to the back post. And also you make your own luck in those kind of situations. His tenacity, his drive, his desire. I think the main thing that we've been critical about with Johnson isn't his end product because we've all seen that. We've all seen him arrive late into the box and get on the end of those crosses. We've seen him against the likes of Newcastle where he's had chances where he's hit the post and it's just he walks away from that game thinking, well, how did he not score? It was a really good performance from Johnson. But since then, we've not seen that as much. And the thing that has been lacking is that desire, is that kind of, confidence to go and beat a man, to go and put your foot in for these challenges, to not shy away from it. And we saw that with the first goal in the sense that he's pressing to force Anderson into the mistake. And then for the third goal as well, it's not a pass from Johnson. He just sticks his foot out and is able to make the tackle, and his tackle, goes through to Son and he scores. But that's down to him being on the front foot, aggressive pressing. And I almost think that some of the criticism from the fan base, not necessarily that it has, directly got back to him, but I think that he's probably acutely aware of the things that he needs to work on. And it seems that this is the perfect it was the perfect game for him to come on and make that impact. And he did exactly that at the perfect time. So, hopefully he takes a lot of confidence from this and he can continue to move forward. Because I think there's such an exciting player in there with Johnson. But in terms of the substitution, I think he needed to, we were on the front foot for most of the second half. I thought we were really growing into it. I thought Maddison, like I said, his influence was growing on the game a lot more. It felt like I didn't think it was against Wolves. I thought we were quite toothless, but against Palace, we had the chance with Son hitting the post. Werner had a chance that was saved by Johnston. It was Johnson even had a chance when he first came on and put it over the bar when he probably should have made it 1-0. So I felt like it was coming for Spurs. But Ange he got the substitutions spot on in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think for me, the difference is with Palace, who moved the ball quicker in the second half compared to Wolves. And I was like, at least, if we don't get anything out of it again, unless we're moving the ball quicker against Wolves, it's really static and, didn't even look like scoring. It took a piece of luck, magic, whatever you call it, from Kulusevski, a little nutmeg of Dawson, and start to leave his near post open. When it comes to Brennan Johnson, there's a lot of people who are quick to criticise and to question, but you see him get 2 assists in ultimately a very key part of that comeback against Palace, and there's not a lot of people, for me, appreciating it. That there's not a lot of conversation at all about Johnson, but there's no kind of, do you know what, you've done well, because at the end of the day, if you're a player like Brennan Johnson, we want them to be scoring and assisting. And Brennan Johnson's up there in terms of goals and assists with the likes of Martinelli, who's in the Arsenal team every single week, and Johnson's in and out this Spurs team. And for me, Johnson's newer, and so I think I look at that and go, it's quite exciting. But to Jaay, to kind of bring you in this, where are you at with Brennan Johnson at the moment? Do you think that was the right change as well at the moment in time?
100%. Because I mean, you're arguably one of the quickest players in the Premier League on against tired legs that they have had. Timo Werner on one side breaking it, and they've had Kulusevski and Son playing off of each other on the opposite side. So, I mean, obviously, as Ben said about we got a bit lucky against Anderson. I mean, we did. But at the end of the day, luck wins games. And if we want to be challenging for this 4th spot, I think Brennan Johnson is going to be one of the players that could potentially be key. And I think at the moment, whilst we're running with the squad we are, the tactic Ange is using is he is using him to burn at tired players. We can press for 45 minutes, knock, and not get no luck. And we bring him on, and yet against Palace, he's the substitute that changed the game. Over everybody else, I believe that he should have been man of the match because he was just non-stop running, and he was closing down, he was tracking back, and then he was on the break constantly. So, yeah, I mean, he's had some very, very unfair and harsh criticism of him. But statistics don't lie. As you said, he's now matching up with Martinelli's numbers. He's got more assists now from open play than Odegaard. He's just around slowly kicking himself on. So it's great to see.
Absolutely is. And staying with you, Jaay, because we've got the equaliser 77th minute, through Timo Werner, his first goal in a Spurs shirt, assists by the man we're talking about, Brennan Johnson. Was that much needed in the game in terms of, we started to move the ball a bit quicker? What was your reaction to that equaliser? Are you happy as well for Timo Werner?
I'm buzzing for him because I'm one of the people that, for his price tag, I've backed him all the way through. I thought the fact that it's a loan deal, no obligation to buy, it is a free hit. He lost a lot of confidence whilst he was at Chelsea. There's no doubt about that, because before he went there, I think he was one of the hottest talents in Europe. And for him to get that goal, I think if he had scored that goal and then got that opportunity, whereas one-on-one with the goalkeeper, I have no questions that he would have buried it. And I mean, he stretches defences so far wide that it opens up the middle. And sometimes players lose him in behind, and he's that quick. He can open up the space. I think on Match of the Day, they broke it down, his goal and his actual thought process of how he scored. And if you see how he played, he made one run to make it look like he was running to the 6-yard line. The defender shifted his position, and then he rotated off and was in at the back post. So, yeah, I believe that he should get heaps of confidence from this.
Absolutely. And Ben, to bring you in on this, because as I said there, you did get the equaliser. So your reaction to the goal, and for Timo Werner, are you happy for him? Because I'm completely agree with everything that Jaay says in terms of, and now I think he's got that goal. Do you think he'll push on?
Yeah, definitely. I've literally just spent about 5 minutes talking about it before I came on. I uploaded a video sort of talking about should Spurs sign Timo Werner, and obviously it's been a hot topic of conversation before, obviously since the weekend and prior to that as well. Because I do think, even though that first goal only came at the weekend, I do think we've seen glimpses of what of how he can be so dangerous at Spurs. And I think Saturday just epitomised what he's sort of all about. Obviously, yes, he misses that chance in the first half. I sort of said that in my immediate reaction after the game, that chance that he missed was so Werner, it was unbelievable, because the timing of the run, the first touch is perfect, like really, really good. That touch to take that on his ankle, set it into his stride, magnificent, and set himself away, and he was in. He just makes the wrong decision. He's got so much. He's almost got too much time to think about it. And I think we've been spoiled as Spurs fans over the last 10 years of seeing, and obviously we saw it with the third goal, of seeing Kane or Son go through on goal, and you can close your eyes, and before you know it, they're back at the halfway line with the ball because he's put it in the back of the net. You don't even need to think about it. Whereas with Werner, that's not the case. And like Jaay said, before Werner went to Chelsea, Werner was one of the hottest prospects in Europe. And the thing that he was known for was obviously his pace, which we have seen at Spurs, but his finishing. He was a very, very snappy, dangerous, almost Jermaine Defoe-esque finisher. He had that sort of level and range of finishing. He was always shift and shoot, shift and shoot. And when he went through one-on-one, you knew that he was going to score when he was in Germany. But I think what we've seen at Chelsea over the last, there's been this kind of ongoing joke about the number 9 curse at Chelsea and how, maybe other than Drogba, they haven't really been able to get that right. They've signed a lot of strikers and it hasn't really worked out for them. But I do think Chelsea is almost a bit of a graveyard for these kind of players that need that little bit of, I think it's very clear that Werner's a confidence player. Werner, he needs that arm around the shoulder. He needs that from the manager and his teammates. He needs that kind of support. And from the fans as well, which is probably the most important aspect of it. And I think with Chelsea fans is, for the most part, lack of patience, especially when it comes to these kind of players that don't hit the ground running because we spent big money, so we should be challenging, which is what we've seen this season from them in terms of their attitude of their fans. Then it's not going to work at Chelsea. And he was almost set up to fail a little bit in a way because of that after the first few months where it wasn't quite working. But I think he's come to Tottenham, where it's a completely different environment, a team that's going in the right direction, a team playing attacking football that suits completely the way he wants to play in terms of getting in behind and using his best assets, which are his movement and his pace. And we saw that again for the goal. Really clever movement from Sonny as well for that equalising goal to create the space for Werner. But I was really pleased for him, and especially off the back of the miss, he kept his head up, kept going at the fullbacks. Like Jaay said, it kind of comes into how we want to play. We want to go at them, make them tired, and then we're able to make those substitutions with Johnson, or whether it's Werner who's not starting if Richarlison's fit and come off the bench. You can really stretch teams, run at them, tired legs, all that kind of stuff like Jaay alluded to. And I think that hopefully that first goal, and sort of something I was thinking about as well when I was talking about it in one of my videos, is the sense that we've got Aston Villa next week, and we're going to get into talking about the Villa game later. From what we saw about Villa coming to Tottenham, they will play with a very high line and they will take the game to you, even as an away side. So the fact that we're now going to Villa Park next week, they're the home side, they're the ascendancy. It's a huge game for top four. There's a lot on the line for them. They will want to come at Tottenham. So if they can leave the space in behind comparably to what they were doing in the reverse fixture, when we had chance after chance after chance getting in behind, and yes, we scored however many offside goals, was it 3, I think? If we can get those timing of the runs right, and that is something that Werner can be, that is an area of his game where he does excel. It's just the finishing part of it. Then getting that goal against a team that, like Crystal Palace, that's set up to negate any kind of threat that Werner has in sitting deep in that low block, not letting the wingers get in behind. The fact that he's got a goal in that game will take him into the Villa game with great confidence against a team that is going to more likely play into his hands from what we've seen from Werner over the years. So I was buzzing for him. I think he deserves it. I liked him sort of celebrating the goal as well, even though it was 1-1. It was nice for him to have that moment. I know Sonny talked about that after the game, where it was like, it was good for him to celebrate, but he has to remember that it was 1-1 in the game, and his game's not won yet, all that kind of stuff. But it was good for him to have that moment, because I think it's clear that he's a player that thrives on confidence and needs the love, and I actually think he's at the perfect club for that. So I think for going into next season, I would say it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest, to sign him for 17 million.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So moving on to our second goal. So Jaay, coming to you in the 80th minute, a score by Romero. Nice little assist from Maddison, actually. So again, your reaction to the goal, because we, space of 3 or 4 minutes, we go from 1-0 down to being 2-1 up. Perfect turnaround, right?
It seems to be the story of our lives at the moment as Spurs fans. Go 1-0 down, and all of a sudden, before you know it, I think we scored 2 goals. We've scored 2 goals within 5 minutes. 6 times this season. So I mean, it's great to see, and I mean the smartness and acuteness of Maddison to just loft the ball. It weren't one of them, I'm just going to lash it into the box. And I think if you're watching it and you see the actual wide angle of it, you're thinking, why is Romero there? So this is possibly something we have worked on, especially with Romero getting into the box. But acuteness from a quick throw in just to loft it over the defenders, and Romero leaps and he outjumps their defender. It's great. And I mean, again, he's another player this season that's thriving on confidence. And I think he done an interview a few days ago, and he said the one thing that I feel I've been missing out of my game is the fact that I get too many yellow cards. He's not actually had a yellow card this year. So since the New Year's break, he's not actually had a single card. So for him to score the second, I mean, the only other person I wanted to score it would have been Mickey van der Ven. But yeah, I mean, it's a great goal, and I just think that it's a tactical goal from sort of something they've worked on in training.
Yeah, I did think that. I must admit, at the time, it was quite nice to see a nice little assist, as I said there, from Maddison. Staying with you, Jaay, because then in the 88th minute to seal the 3 points and the comeback, Son scores another Johnson assist. Actually, the ball played through to him. Ben touched on it earlier. 100, you 100% like Son's going to score. Because to me, I looked up, and when I saw it was Son, you knew it was going to hit the back of the net, right?
Yeah, he done exactly what Werner should have done in the first half. And the commentary on the stream that I was watching on instantly said, Son goes through 9 times out of 10, you're hearing the ball hit the net. And it was the eyes that he gave the keeper to send the keeper the wrong way and just rolls it into the opposite corner. I mean, we're so lucky to have a star that's as confident and as comfortable on both feet, because if he had gone in the opposite direction, could have done the exact same. And I think this against Villa, as Ben touched on, they're going to be playing against a very high line. And obviously we'll speak about it more. We have the bonus of having 3 extremely quick attackers to come and basically cause havoc against their defence. So for Son to go through and score, it was perfect because it's his first goal of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, Ben, I don't know what you think, but that game for me just showed how important a goal is in football in terms of we got that equaliser and the momentum, that shift. And I think it's similar against Brighton, but in particular in this game, we just didn't see that against Wolves. We got that goal. There wasn't really a reaction from that. So yeah, from that, does it kind of show you how important a goal is for confidence and momentum for a team?
Yeah, absolutely. On a personal level, for someone like Werner and as a team, I do genuinely think that against Wolves, it was one of those games where it was like you really struggled to see us breaking this team down. And even when we got the equaliser, we just didn't really kick on from that. But being at the game on Saturday, I just felt the way the game was going and the way that we were sort of really starting to grow into it, despite the Eze free kick. As soon as we got that equalising goal, I just felt as if we would. I just felt as if we'd go in and get the winner. It didn't even really cross my mind. What it's like. We've all been sat there at games over the last, or however long we've been going to Spurs. It's that typical kind of, you don't have that confidence. Spurs could be 3-0 up in a game, and you're still thinking, oh God, how long's to go? Like, it's what we're like, and I think that kind of also manifests itself in when we get an equaliser. We don't necessarily have that confidence as a fan base that we're going to go on and get the winning goal. But we've shown it so many times this season. Like I said at the start of the pod, like we can be one of the most suffocating teams in the Premier League. Teams do, once we put our foot on the throat, quite often we're not letting it off. And I think we've seen that against Brentford. We saw it against Sheffield United earlier in the season as well. We got that equaliser. In spells, we can just be one of the most devastating teams. And I felt as if we were gearing up to that kind of finish again at Palace against Palace once we got that equaliser. And I felt confident that we were going to go and get it, because we saw it against Brentford, and we saw that this team has got that confidence to go and get that equalising goal, and it's not enough. We want to keep going, go for the throat, go and get that winner. And I think that's been a real mentality shift for Spurs this season. And I think a lot of that's been born out of Ange Postecoglou coming to the club, because that's the way that he wants to play football. So I wasn't shocked. I wasn't surprised that we did go and get it. It was amazing to see Romero again, kind of stepping up at those big moments. I think Jaay sort of touched on it in terms of this perceived idea that he's rash and all this kind of stuff, which I just don't buy into. I just think that's a really incredibly lazy outlook from rival fans who just refuse to rate him, because I genuinely think we are so lucky to have one of the best centre-back partnerships in Europe already, but to go on and to think about what they could go on to do over the next 2 to 3 years. And I think that's something that, since Romero's been given the responsibility of the vice captaincy, I think that was a masterstroke from Postecoglou, and I've said that all season. And I think that, he's stepped up in so many moments like this. His 4th goal of the season now, I think. And you could see how much it meant. You could see how he was kissing the badge. You could see jumping into the crowd. He loves it and he thrives. He's got that passion. And, it's really great to see, because I think now he's sort of refined his game a little bit more, become the centre back that we thought he was going to, or certainly become the centre back that we have already seen at Spurs. That first season, under Conte, none of us sort of had this idea of him being rash. Yes, he was going in for strong tackles. Yes, he was putting himself about, but I think there was a wider acceptance of how good he was in the first season, and it's sort of his reputation sullied a little bit last year. But again, we just fell off massively as a team anyway last year, and he was sort of just caught up a little bit in that. But I just, that was just a moment that just, it felt kind of special with him having that, stepping up and getting that goal that won us the game. And then Sonny after that, like we've already alluded to, it's just cash money in those situations in front of goal. It's just gives the keeper the eyes. You don't need to overanalyze it, but it's just like you just knew he was going to score. He's done that so many times, and we're so lucky to probably have one of the most effective and clinical strikers there has been in Premier League history, in my opinion. He doesn't get the respect he deserves, and he's been fantastic as a captain, a leader, and just as a player again this season. His game has just gone up massively compared to last year. It's just superb, Sonny.
Yeah, well said. Couldn't agree more. He certainly doesn't get the respect he deserves, and sadly, I don't think he ever will. He's one of those players that just go under the radar. But moving on to player of the match, Jaay, if you had to choose anyone, who would be your player of the match?
Yves Bissouma. I think,
okay,
as Ben alluded to earlier, that's the best we've seen him since Luton. Luton away, in my opinion. Before that, he just seems like he's a player that hasn't had his confidence. And I mean, the opening games of the season, we see how good. We see the Bissouma we paid for. But I feel he's now he's had his break. He's had some time to settle back in. I just feel like he was everywhere. During the game, he was opening the play up, and he's one of them players you can't give him space because he'll break into it. Obviously, overshadowed by Brennan Johnson's 2 assists. Obviously, Werner's first goal, Sonny scoring, Romero scoring. I mean, for him, he just seemed like the player that we had before the Luton game. So, I mean, there's a few players obviously in for a shout, but for me, it was his best game.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's interesting, because I went to the game, and this just shows you, for me, it's all about that kind of perspective and in terms of what you're looking at. I didn't really think Bissouma was fantastic. There's a few times that I thought he put the ball out of play, but pretty much everyone I spoke to said that Bissouma, that has been his best game for a long while. So there you go. I was there. It's a bit worrying. Tripping down Specsavers. But Ben, coming to you, who's your player of the match?
I definitely think Jay's right to give the shout out to Bissouma. I thought he was very, very good. But I think in terms of the man of the match, I think it has to be Mickey van der Ven. I just think that I just can't believe the ease in which he makes those kind of recoveries look, because we weren't under much pressure from Palace, but there were a few times where they turned us over and Van der Ven had to make those sort of typical sliding tackles and recoveries that we've seen from him this season. But it's just, I can't believe the composure and ease in which he shows to do that. He's just like a centre-back that I don't think I've seen at Spurs before. And I think alongside Romero again was another shout, I think, for man of the match. I think again he had a really, really solid game. Didn't put a foot wrong, obviously come up with that winning moment as well. But for Van der Ven, I just think, again, the composure that he showed on the ball, I think it's telling the fact that he went down, when he went down injured inside the first 5 minutes, everybody's heads went down and it was just like, here we go again. Season's falling apart. Without Van der Ven, we're not the same team. I thought he was excellent. I thought he played a key hand in the third goal as well. The way he brought the ball out from the back showed so much composure to go around the Crystal Palace attacker that was sort of half pressing him, but Van der Ven shrugged him aside with ease. And it was just, again, another, since he's come back from injury, the first couple of games, I think United, he looked a little bit rusty, but I think it was since the City game in the Cup, he has not put a foot wrong. Everton away, superb. City at home in the Cup, superb. Again, probably our man of the match last week as well, against a couple of weeks ago against Wolves. But that doesn't really put him in the best light because of how poor we were as a team. But Saturday, I thought it was fantastic, and I thought it had to be Van der Ven for me. I just thought he was excellent. Okay, fair enough. Jaay, I'll come to you because Ben again mentioned Mickey van der Ven there. For you, how good was he? Because I had it down in my notes because he really impressed me. And there was I saw, because obviously I'm followed by a few, I'm followed with a few like Palace fans, the content creators. And they were like, "Wow, it's got to be a crime to have Van der Ven on the pitch." They really like what they saw. So how good was he for you?
Sorry,
that's all right.
It's insane. He can give a player a 10-yard head start, And you're talking, we've seen him against the fastest players in the league. He done it against Salah and Jordan Ayew, I think at one point give up. He's just that quick. And to the fact that we've managed to sign this lad who's 6'2", and he's just broken the Premier League speed record. Against Palace, the recovery runs, as Ben was touching on, you can't believe that a player of his size, his build, can be that quick. And he's honestly, for me, if he hadn't been injured, he would have gone down as signing of the season by far for any team. And we've still got, 2-3 months left of the season. Yeah. And if we keep him fit, obviously I see somebody in the comments mentioned, obviously, Dragustin, why is he not getting some game time? You can't break up this centre-back pairing when they are so good together at the moment. We've always wanted squad depth, and I believe Dragustin's come here with the belief that he will get game time. We get Europe next season, having two players that can rotate in and out of each position is going to be what can make or break our season.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. And the last individual I want to focus on before we go on to Aston Villa is Emerson Royale. So, Ben, for you, was he better than he was 2 weeks ago against Wolves? Because I looked at him and I thought he didn't really put a foot wrong.
Yeah, so much better. So much better. I think, again, we all know Emerson's limitations, and I think his limitations were just highlighted against Wolves because, there was more of that over-reliance on playing with the inverted fullbacks, which I actually don't think Emerson drifted into those kind of areas as much on Saturday. I think it was more of a tactical tweak from Ange, not to have to rely on. Obviously, a doggy did what a doggy does. Like, he loves to roam into those areas and drive with the ball. But I actually didn't think we saw quite as much of that from either fullback as we have in recent games. So I think that maybe suited Emerson a little bit more. He looked more comfortable on the ball. He was quite unlucky with that chance that Spurs played out really well from the back. And it was, if his cross, we're talking fine margins. He had that cross where he had Son in the box and Werner coming in at the back post. He just overhits it. And it's one of those things where you think if that's Porro in that situation, that probably ends up in a goal. But, we're talking very, very fine margins when it comes to Emerson in that situation. But I thought he was great. Again, like you said, I don't think he really put a foot wrong. I actually didn't think, despite the goal, and I'm a huge fan of Berriese, and I've sort of been, leading the march for Spurs to sign him in the summer, and I've been saying this for years. But I actually think, obviously, it was his first game back from injury for Palace. He didn't cause Emerson too many problems and was subbed off actually just after the goal. A moment of brilliance, but it came from a dead ball situation. I thought he dealt with him particularly well. He dealt with the threat of França that then came on and played on that side particularly well as well. Young, exciting player with lots of pace to burn. So again, yeah, I think the best thing you can say about Emerson Royale sometimes is if I know we're obviously sitting and talking about it, but quite often we've spent a lot of time talking about Emerson after games for the wrong reasons. And if it's not necessarily that much of a talking point, I think that shows you how well he has done, because I think sometimes his flaws can get exposed in games where the technical quality is so high. But again, he's come in and been a really adept backup for us, mainly at centre-back this season, to be fair. But I definitely think he deserves his flowers after the weekend. I thought it was like you said, I can't really say anything more than he didn't really put a foot wrong, to be fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, moving on to Aston Villa, Jaay, I'll come to you first. Firstly, how are you feeling ahead of the game? And talk me through your lineup 1 to 11.
Nervous because my boss is a big Aston Villa fan, so my phone might be going on aeroplane mode come Sunday afternoon. But no, I'm slightly confident, and the reason I'm slightly confident is they have a big cup tie in Amsterdam this Thursday. So for them, if they want to win that competition, which I believe could be their priority at this stage anyway of the season, whilst they've still got a point lead, I'm fairly confident. But Villa's been a fortress for the last 18 months under Emery. I think there's no way, as long as we keep it in a close-knit game, if we was to lose 2-1, of course it would be gutting to lose. But I believe that we would take some form of confidence away from it. It's just, for me, it's a must-win game. If we want this Champions League spot guaranteed, we have to go there. And as for the starting 11, I believe if Porro is fit, Porro has to play. The balls that he can play against a high line, as much as obviously Ben touched on, Royale wasn't too bad against Palace. It's a different kettle of fish. It's a different kind of player. He suits into the system that Ange wants us to play. So for me, it would be the same starting 11. Obviously, Brennan Johnson, I'd look to bring on early second half, depending on how we're playing. Porro starts, Udogie starts, and the same squad other than that. And obviously, for me, I'd keep Bentancur on the bench, and I'd put the legs of Sarr in against the midfield, which is quite tough in Douglas Luiz and John McGinn.
Okay, and Jaay, because obviously I know you have to go. What is your score prediction to put you on the spot then? Who's going to score?
I'm going to go a confident 2-1, and I believe
Who to?
to Tottenham.
Okay.
And I believe we're going to see the first free kick goal from James Maddison this weekend.
Oh, fantastic.
We've got to see somebody score a free kick this season. So I'm hoping it's the man Madders, and he pulls out the dart celebration.
Absolutely. That'd be great. Thank you very much. And I know you have to go now, Jaay. So where can people find you on socials for people who don't know?
Twitter, but be aware that my opinions can upset people. I speak from the mind regardless. But at the same time, I'm here for a chat. So yeah, my Twitter handle's OJCo. Feel free to give me a follow. I'll follow all back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jaay. It's been a pleasure to have you on. So thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
See you later. Thank you. And now, Ben, coming to you. How are you feeling ahead of Aston Villa, firstly?
I'm looking forward to it, really, to be fair. It's a massive game for the season. Obviously, we're 5 points behind Villa with a game in hand. So if we win that, that could potentially give us the upper hand for Champions League football. But obviously, that said, we are going into a really tricky run coming at end of March, April, with that Chelsea game still yet to be rearranged, which is our game in hand. And it feels like it's probably going to get put slam bang in the middle of those really difficult fixtures. So, a result on Sunday, even if it is a positive one for Spurs, doesn't necessarily put us in the driving seat, but it gives us a real bit of confidence, especially after Villa beat us earlier on in the season, to really kick on and know that we can go away to these bigger sides. Because, obviously, Arsenal are having quite the game tonight already. I can see they're 4-0 up after half an hour. But it seems as if it's more down to Sheffield United's lack of application, to be fair. But, it gives us confidence knowing we've got big teams to play. But it's more about the fact that if we go to Villa and get a result, even with those big games left, where we probably are the underdogs in a lot of them, including the Arsenal game, that we can go away and get something. So yeah, it's going to be it's a really big game. Like Jaay mentioned before, obviously they've got this fixture sandwiched in between two massive European ties for them, away and at home to Ajax, which will be special nights for Villa. So they'll be putting a lot into that, even if it is, not to say just the Conference League, but it's big. It's really big for them. And obviously, there are vulnerabilities of Villa to be got at. We saw that on Saturday in the sense that Luton came back from 2 goals down and maybe should have gone on to win the game and really put Villa under pressure in that second half. We put Villa under a lot of pressure in the reverse fixture earlier on in the season and just weren't able to capitalise, taking our chances and all that stuff. But on the flip side of that, Villa were devastating in that first half, and Ollie Watkins, who obviously scored against us earlier on in the season, has got the most goal contributions in the league with 26, which is crazy. 26 combined goals and assists for Ollie Watkins. And they can be devastating, Villa. So it's going to be a very fascinating game. I think it's, not to sound cliche, but it's definitely going to be one for the neutral. I think people will really enjoy tuning into that on Sunday before a massive game in Liverpool City as well. I think it's going to be maybe a bit of a goal fest on Sunday afternoon in both of the games. But I'm going up to Villa Park. I'm looking forward to it. And I feel quietly confident that we can go there and get something. It's going to be tough. Villa have got a bit of a number over us recently. But yeah, hopefully we can go there and get the job done, because it's a big game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you. I'm kind of, although I'm nervous, I'm not going to lie, and I think it's going to be really, really tough. I'm going to have to be at our absolute best. Part of me is excited because, I look at it and go, this is a good opportunity of us for the games we've got. And obviously Villa having to go to Amsterdam, I believe, Wednesday is an opportunity for us to kind of capitalise on that. And obviously Ramsey came off injured against Luton, so that could be quite massive. Obviously, we know how versatile Ramsey is. But Ben, the next question I have for you is, what was your lineup look like? Talk me through it. Obviously, she would like Porro is available.
Yeah, hopefully Porro. If Porro's back, then again, I think that's a no-brainer. That has to happen, like Jaay sort of alluded to, not just because of what he brings to the team in terms of what we've already seen this season, but his ability to pick that ball over the top against a high line that Villa will undoubtedly play against us. Like I said, if they were that brave coming to White Hart Lane and playing like that, they're certainly not going to shy away from trying to take the game to us on Sunday, even though they know that we can hit them on the counter-attack. I would probably, aside from that, maybe keep the same 11, except I'd probably bring Sarr in because it's going to be a really combative midfield battle. Their midfield has been exceptional this season, whether it's a midfield three of Ramsey, Louise and McGinn, or it probably is likely to be that. That could cause us problems, and they have looked to overrun teams. They're so industrious and got so much quality. So I would probably bring Sarr in just to have that, those legs in midfield to be able to get us up and down the pitch when we do have the chance to break out, but also really get stuck in. It might be one of those games that, with Bentancur sort of looking the way that he is at the moment, it might be one of those games that unfortunately passes him by a little bit too quickly. But hopefully that's not the case. And I do think a fully fit Bentancur is probably the option in this kind of game because of his composure on the ball and his ability to be press resistant. Villa will look to come and take the game to us for that. But I think you've got Basuma in the team for that, really. So that's probably the change I would make in midfield. And then I think the front line, I'd probably keep it the same, but maybe, like Jaay said, allude to an early change with Johnson, depending on how the game's going. Because I think Kulusevski had a really good game against Villa in the reverse fixture, albeit he was playing in the 10. But yeah, I would keep probably the front line the same, but I just think Johnson has to be, again, with the way that Villa will set up, I think that has to be the first probably change off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for me, I don't know how you feel about this, Ben, but I think that what Unai Emery's done with Aston Villa for me has gone massively under the radar, considering where they were when he came in. I think getting them, European football last season, just even how well they've done this season. Yeah, it's been backed. Key players have been brought in for him, but he's still getting, for me, the best out of some fairly average players, if you like. So I think the team he's got, Villa, is still overperforming, and I think they've gone from strength to strength. It just doesn't seem to get the kind of coverage. There's a lot of negativity around the job that Pochettino's doing with Chelsea and Erik ten Hag's doing Man United, and there's praise, etc., for other managers. But for me, what Unai Emery's done with Aston Villa, because you go back to the start of the season, I don't think either Villa, if you said to both Villa and Tottenham, Ange Postecoglou and Unai Emery, that you'd be in a top four race come the end of the season, I think they both would have shook your hand and gone, absolutely, that is fantastic. We'd love that. So just how good are Villa under Unai Emery for you, Ben?
I think they're great. I've been super, super impressed with them. And let's not forget, they're not out of a title race. I'm not saying they're going to win it. They're definitely not going to win it. But they are. If Arsenal were to slip up in the next few weeks, obviously they've got to go to the Etihad. City have got Liverpool, so points will be dropped there. There's going to be points to be played for, and if Villa can sort of pick up points around that, like I said, they're not going to win the league, but they're not out of that conversation. They have got a strong grip on fourth and will be looking upwards, I think, rather than behind them. Probably not the case for Sunday. They will be looking at Spurs and thinking, right, if that game goes not the way we want it to, then obviously we've lost a bit of, if we win on Sunday, top four is technically in our hands because, like I said, of the game in hand, but there's so much uncertainty around Tottenham's run into the rest of the season because even if that Chelsea game does get put in, it's the week we're meant to be playing Manchester City on the weekend that they will probably most likely be in the FA Cup semi-final. So there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking again when it comes to the fixtures. So it's going to be a bit up in the air for Tottenham for the rest of the season. But in terms of Villa, like they have been super impressive. They are deadly going forward. Leon Bailey has come into his own massively this season. There's been a lot of chat about Diaby, who was someone they paid big money for, brought him in. Lots of excitement around him, but I actually think Leon Bailey's been superb. He's finally, I think, managed to get a rhythm in that Villa side that he hasn't really had over the last few years because of his injuries. So it's been really, really positive to see him playing that way. I do like to watch Villa. Villa are a great team for the neutral to kind of, they're a proper football club. So to see them challenging up there with the likes of Arsenal, City and Liverpool I think is good for the league. Obviously hope we beat them on Sunday, but they're super impressive. And I think, like I said, there are frailties there. There are things that you can certainly get at with Villa, but yeah, I think Tottenham will go there with a bit of confidence. But they can be devastating going the other way. So it's going to be, I think tactically, it's going to be fascinating on Sunday. I
really think it is. It's two positive, approaches, two positive-minded managers. Love the high line playing out from the back. So, again, I'm going to put you on the spot, Ben. What will the score be come Sunday?
I'm going to go with immediately when you asked me that question, my mind went back to when we beat Villa at Villa Park under Mourinho, where Son scored that last-minute winner and we won 3-2. So I'm going to go for 3-2 to Spurs. I think there's going to be goals in it, but I think we're going to come out on top. I do.
Who's going to score for you, do you reckon?
I think Sonny. He's got quite a good record there, and I think with the kind of the high line and the pace that he's got, I think will cause him a lot of problems like that. I'm going to back Werner to go 2 for 2-2, and I'll stick with Jaay and I'll go with Maddison. I think Maddison's due a goal since his return from injury, so I'm going to go with James Maddison as the 3 goal scorers.
Okay, fair enough. Got some predictions here. Barney says 1-1. I think that's quite realistic. Victor says I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, 2-2 or 3-3. Interesting. Okay, so we've got some. Get your score prediction as well in the comments below. Barney says Villa class side, Watkins sensational. I love to watch them, very entertaining. They are certainly entertaining. Before we get on the questions that people put forward for the podcast on Twitter this morning, we do the FPL update. Quick question for you, Ben, that I obviously ask on every week show. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. Bit of a balance today. And that is how many points this time will we get from our next 3 Premier League fixtures? Well, obviously 9 points are available. Our next 3 games are Villa away, Fulham away, and Luton at home. That's Villa and Fulham away, then Luton at home. How many points are you going to get from those 3, Ben?
I think it's, well, I was thinking about 7, but then it's like that would kind of allude to us maybe getting a point at Villa Park, and I've just predicted us to win. So I'm going to go 9. Fulham are going to be really tough as well. Super impressive they've been this season. Obviously beaten Arsenal at home as well. They've been really, really good, Fulham. So that's not going to be easy at all. And then against Luton at home, you'd expect us to pick up 3 points. So yeah, why not? Let's go for 9. Let's be positive.
Oof. Yeah, I'm not quite feeling as positive for you. I'm going to go with only 4 points. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I look at Villa and go, for me, I think they're just they're a little bit further into the project under Emery. I think the thought will go into Villa Park. I think we made hard work of the Palace win, if I'm honest with you. I don't think we're quite ready. I don't think players like Bentancur are currently quite clicking yet. We're not. It's not for me. It's just the case of the wrong time. I hope in a few weeks' time we really, really get it together. So I'm going to go 2-1 Villa for that. Fulham away won't be easier, in a good patch of form. And originally at the start of the season, I said I think we get 4 points off Fulham. So that means that we draw that game. So I think we will. I think it'll be a frustrating draw. So that's obviously a point. I do think we'll beat Luton at home. I don't think that'll be disastrous, but a point against Villa, I think in a way it's like, for me, it kind of maybe it's a point's better for the away team rather than the home team, because we have a game in hand on Villa. So
I would take.
It's one of those. I think.
Yeah, I think I'd probably take a point at Villa. Like if we could get a draw, as long as we kind of make a good account of ourselves and it's not us hanging on. I think if we can go there really, put our best foot forward and show the application to try and get something from the game. And if it ends up in a draw, then I'll take that. I will take that.
At the time of recording, sadly, Arsenal beat Sheffield United 5-0. It's not the first time those Sheffield United have seen a rather large score prediction. I don't know how far we're into the game. What about 39, 40 minutes? So
I think they were.
But we will.
Yeah, they were 3-0 up after the first 15. I think it was 4-0 quickly after that. And I think there was some Sheffield United fans already leaving after the first 15 minutes, which you can't blame them, to be fair. I think this could get double figures, if I'm being honest, from what I've seen.
We'll have to come back to that and see. But we will focus Tottenham, especially with that going on. So moving on to the questions that people put forward for the podcast. Actually, no, before we do that, we'll do the FPL update. I nearly forgot. Because obviously we have our own league. There's 116 people in it now. Top of the league is still Tom Carr, so big up with 586 points. Second is Kai Gott. Third is Sean Holder. Fourth is Will Savage. Fifth is Tommy C. Sixth is Mickey Ray. Seventh is Luke Charlton. Eighth, Luca Fagna. Ninth, Ted McCoy. 10th, Mark Sweeney. 11th, Richard Nurse. 12th, Lewis Godfrey. 13th, George Wanya. 13th, Onya Yaron. We've got 14th there, Stephen Horn, kind of joints. So 15th, 16th is Magnus De Chair. 17th is Andrew. 8th is Rob Perry. 19th, Danny Sands. And 20th, Kenyon Daniel. That is the top 20. I'm absolutely ashamed to say I'm all the way down in 94 for 116. Because in my first year with FPL, and I did know that it took points away when you made transfers. So well and truly screwed, but we won't worry about FPL. We'll move on to the questions.
You can't win them all, mate. You can't win them all. I'm used to the FPL. I'm useless with it.
Can't be as bad as me. No, not my favourite thing. So if you see yourself in that top 20, get involved in the comments below. But if not, where are you? Let me know. And I'm really interested to see where you are. So this is your chance on YouTube to get involved in the comments. And also, if you are listening on any other podcast platform, just drop me a DM, HarryScarf22, or the Scarfy Spurs Talk Twitter page, and we will see where you are in that league. Or any questions or thoughts on today's show. Moving on to the questions, though. Liam firstly asked, would you take a draw against Villa now? If so, does that indicate a problem with our fan base's mentality? So what do you reckon about that, Ben?
I don't think so. I don't think it's got any reflection on our mentality. I think people are so quick to kind of use the terms of like, oh, small club mentality. You can't go into a game trying to hoping for a draw. But that's not what we're saying. It's just more of the fact that Villa are a really tough team. When you think about the fact that Arsenal have gone there and lost, City have gone there and lost, and they played City off the park. Arsenal, they were slightly more fortunate, but they played City off the park, Villa, that day. So I would go there hoping to get 3 points. But if we come away from a draw, like I said, as long as the circumstances were that we did put our foot forward and did go for it, and unfortunately just wasn't good enough or wasn't enough, and we missed chances, all that kind of thing. As long as we went for it, I wouldn't be too bothered. And I actually think it'd probably be a good result come the end of the season, even if it meant that we didn't get in the Champions League.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just drop the code for the FPL League. Next question is for you in the chat there from Therapist God, who says thoughts on the new UEFA competition format, which is explained in detail today. So have you seen that?
I think it's just, again, the kind of the lawmakers of football making changes that nobody is asking for. I think it's killing the Champions League format. I think we've already seen with the away goals. I don't think the away goals have had as much of an impact as people are maybe suggesting, but I do think it's killed some of the ties a little bit. And I just think this, I haven't seen too much. I've seen the basic outlines of the format today. I know there's been a lot of chat around it, but from what I've read kind of in the last year or so, that obviously the changes have been gearing up to it. It just feels like, is anybody asking for this? Like, it's the same as the blue cards thing. It's like, does anybody want these changes? It's just I think it's just going to become incredibly boring, the Champions League. And I think this year it's almost kind of getting to that anyway. But yeah, not massively keen on it, if I'm being honest.
No, fair enough. I think it involves a few more games. It basically scraps the group stage all in one big league. So it is quite confusing, but it was explained well. I'll give them that today, so go check that out if you want more understanding on it. Fred says, I don't see anyone else but Liverpool winning the league because of Klopp news. I completely agree. And they feel like they owe it to him to win the league. What are your guys' thoughts, Ben? Who's winning the league?
I think Man City are winning the league. I do get that from the Liverpool perspective, though. I just think that you saw it with City yesterday. Once it gets to this kind of time of the season, I'm not saying. Well, I'm not going to nail my colours to the mast and say City 100%, because I mean, I'm not even going to let the words come out of my mouth talking about Arsenal. But I do think Liverpool. I think you can't ignore Liverpool for sure, but also saying that Liverpool are definitely going to win it because of the whole Klopp factor, which I completely understand, and I've been there at points as well. And I think there'll be another game. They play each other next week as well, so we'll get a better idea than that. And obviously, Liverpool are in the driving seat at the moment. They've got the points on the board. Obviously, I think City might have a game in hand, or I'm not 100% sure actually on that, to be fair. But you can't ignore Liverpool. You can't ignore any of those teams. But I do just think when push comes to shove in May, I do think it will be City, but it'll be very, very tight. I think it'll be tighter than last year when they sort of pulled away from Arsenal. I think both of those teams are going to push them really, really far.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally, if I'm honest with you, I think it'll go down to the final day. I do think it'll be really close, and I hope it's between all three on the final day, just for a little bit of entertainment. Also, you don't want Arsenal winning it. Let's be very clear for anyone. Pulls me up on that. And always saying all three to the end.
I think what you're saying is it'd be better to see them lose it on the final day and have that heartbreak than sort of just. I don't want it to be like if they're not going to win it, let them not win it in style.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't give them time to recover and go again. Jay says, my question for tonight is Emerson, Raul, Dragusin. Very brief. Ben, what do you reckon?
But to be fair, I think it's a debate that we probably won't be having this time next week if Porro's hopefully back. But I do think, I think if Porro is still maybe a week away when it comes to next week, then I still think we'll go with Emerson. I think the only way that you shoehorn Dragusin into that back four is if you put Romero at right back and put Dragusin in the middle. But then again, I just think that is it worth breaking up that partnership of having Romero and Van der Ven? We've spoken tonight at length about how good they are and how how solid a partnership they are and how crucial they are to us. So, from my perspective, if Porro's not fit, I think it still has to be Emerson Royale. I think people just, with Dragusin, I think people just need to bear in mind that he's a young guy. He'll get far more opportunities next season when European football hopefully comes around. And I think that's when he's going to get his chance. So I wouldn't be, but like, I don't think it needs to be a conversation for the rest of the season, because I just think if Romero and Van der Ven are fit, especially when we've got only one competition to focus on, it has to be those two. And hopefully Porro can keep himself fit for the rest of the season. It's unfortunate for Dragusin, but he'll get chances to prove himself. So I'm not too bothered about the whole Dragusin debate. That's not just from that question, but from it feels like it's been rumbling on for the last few weeks of people saying,
yeah, it does.
He needs a chance, he deserves a chance, etc., etc. Which, of course, he does. Of course, he does. Everyone deserves a chance if they're putting in the effort in training and all that kind of good stuff. But I just think that you can't look away from Romero and Van der Ven at the moment, in my opinion.
No, I agree. The next question is from Courtney Love on YouTube. It says, "Do you think Kane will come back at some point?"
No, I don't think he will. I mean, never say never. I just think he's probably looking at it at the moment as that chapter is kind of closed. I wouldn't be surprised if he did come back. I wouldn't necessarily be desperate for it. I love Harry Kane, but we were having this sort of conversation on the Fighting Cock earlier about who do you sort of hold in higher regard as a Spurs fan? Is it Son or is it Kane? Who do you hold sort of more love for? And I think we sort of unanimously came to the decision that it was Sonny. And I think that has sort of almost softened the blow of Kane leaving a little bit because of the way that Sonny stepped up. And I think Sonny always had that in him anyway. So do I think he'll come back? My instinct says probably not, but never say never. But I like I said, I'm not desperate for it. Good luck to him. And if he comes back, amazing. But yeah, I think we've got to move on personally.
Yeah, I think we have to move on. Of course, you're not going to be one of these Spurs fans that sits here and goes, "Yeah, we're better off without Kane and wouldn't have him back." Absolutely, I think anyone with a bit of common sense, half a brain cell, would take Harry Kane back. We know that we'd be in a better place with him in this team. However, I'm not going to sit here and go. A lot of people still go, "Oh, if only we hadn't let Harry Kane go," or "Where would we be if we had Harry Kane?" I couldn't care less, to be honest with you, because we haven't got him. We've moved on. Good luck at Bayern. I hope he wins a trophy. I honestly do. But my priority is Tottenham Hotspur, and this Tottenham Hotspur side does not have Harry Kane, so crack on, ultimately. Yeah. But the next question I'm going to give to you is from Porro SZN, so Peter on X, who says, "Will we get top four ahead of Villa and Man United?" So, Ben, what I'm going to do for you is going to change the question slightly. Talk me through your whole top six from 1 to 6.
I'll go in reverse order because I think the title race is probably hard. I think Man United will finish 6th. I can't see United compete for Champions League football at all. They're nowhere near it. They're miles off it. They're 6 points behind us. We've got a game in hand. I think it's a two-way shootout between Villa and Spurs. If you're asking me what my gut feeling is that we'll probably finish 5th, I think. But I would take 5th. I think that would represent a successful season and a really good first step in terms of the rebuild that we're trying to achieve under Postecoglou. And you never know, that could still land us in the Champions League. But we can't have that attitude. We can't go into it thinking that 5th is going to get us Europe. If we finish 5th, whether we're in the Champions League or Europa League, let's crack on and move on from there. But I do think Villa have got the upper hand. There was an article in the Daily Telegraph that Matt Law wrote sort of saying that Tottenham are in the driving seat for top 4. And I couldn't disagree more. It felt like a really lazy article, basically just on the basis of Tottenham have been there before. They've only got one game a week. It's like, but you're forgetting that Villa have got a 5-point cushion on us. And I know we've got to play them, and that could, like I said, if Spurs win the game, then it is factually in our hands because the gap will be 2 points. We've got a game in hand. But when you look at the fixtures we've got left for the rest of the season, it's going to be really, really tough. But, who's to say we couldn't go on a run? Like, who's to say, we sort of, again, it was something we talked about on the pod earlier, like, maybe this game is going to allow us to sort of kick on and go on that little bit of a run now and get that momentum back. And like I said, we're not where we want to be. We're not where we were in the first 10 games, but I do think Saturday represented the closest we've been to it since maybe the Newcastle game. So I think, plenty to look forward to for the rest of the season. But I do think if you gun to my head now, I would probably say 5th. But also I'm confident enough to say that because I would be happy with it. I would be happy with 5th. Villa in 4th. And then I think, this is just where it gets incredibly tough. I'm going to say what I hope will happen, and I hope that will be Arsenal in 3rd, And then, to be fair, between City and Liverpool, I wouldn't really mind seeing who wins the title. I do think Liverpool, for the narrative and the story around Klopp, I do think it'd be good for them. And I don't really, a lot of people don't seem to like Liverpool too much, but I really don't mind them, to be fair. So but my gut says I think it'll be City that win it. So I'd go Arsenal, Liverpool, City.
Okay. Fair enough. For me, I'm going to go with Man United 6th. I think we'll finish 5th. Again, I completely agree with you. I'll be very happy with. 4th, I think, will be Aston Villa. Now's here where it gets interesting, and this is quite bold. 3rd, I'm going to go with Manchester City. And I do think it'll be tight. It sounds bizarre, but I think we're talking, I think it'll be down to, I think from City to 2nd will be a point. And then 1st to 2nd will be literally on goal difference. I think it'd be really tight. So City 3rd, and go with Arsenal 2nd, who I think miss out just at this moment in time. It doesn't look like a goal difference, obviously, by the beat Sheffield United. But I think Liverpool will win the title. So that is my top 6. Guys, get involved in the comments below with your top 6. But the next question is from Barney, who says, what Spurs game this season has pleased you most with what I'd call a complete performance from defence to attack? What do you reckon, Ben?
Well, that's a tough one. I think there's been a few, to be fair. I think Newcastle was probably up there. Newcastle at home when we battered them 4-1. It's tough to say because I think I head went to the United game at the start of the season, but again, that was in the kind of the infancy of the Postecoglou reign, and United did have chances, but I thought we were really, really impressive, especially in the context of it being the first home game of the season, and people not sure what we were going to be like under Postecoglou. Burnley away is also one you can throw into that mix. But again, when you kind of consider how poor the Burnley team have been since then, that's not to detract anything from the Spurs performance, because the goals in that game we scored were just all out of a picture book. They were fantastic. So Burnley would definitely be up there. I'm gonna say Newcastle, because just the fact that it was against that, obviously Newcastle have sort of fallen away a little bit and they've had a lot of injuries and stuff, and they did when we played them. But I just think the way that, I know in terms of what Barney's saying, in terms of it being complete, obviously in that case, you'd like it to be with a clean sheet. But we conceded a goal right at the end of the game. But I think in terms of an attacking performance, it was so free flowing, so exciting. And it just felt like that was a good one. So I'd probably say the Newcastle or Burnley, but I'll edge it to Newcastle just because of the level of opposition.
Yeah, absolutely. Byron says, would you agree that Vicario has won us more points than anyone else through his exceptional performances? I would certainly agree.
In comparison to the other Spurs players, like, has he won?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'd probably say so because despite the fact that his perceived weaknesses came under the radar in the last few games, which I don't necessarily buy into all that much. I think if you stand in front of enough goalkeepers and kind of make it as difficult for them, you're going to highlight supposed weaknesses. It wasn't really, that whole conversation again wasn't really a big deal for me around Vicario. So no. Like when you look at the season as a whole, like there's been some of the games where without him, like you think of I was trying to think of a game then. So I think Jaay mentioned earlier about Brighton. Or maybe it was on another pod about Brighton, in the sense that I know we lost that game, but without him, it could have been more. I think it was Jaay that said it earlier on when we were talking about the Eze free kick. There's been so many games. The Liverpool home game, I know obviously we were slightly fortunate in that with the offside goal, but he made some incredible saves in that first half. I would say so. I think he's probably won us more points than anyone, because at the end of the day, like, your goalkeeper, that's kind of what he's there to do. And I know you could argue maybe up the other end of the pitch, it'd probably be Sonny, but I think, I probably would have to go Vicario in terms of who's won us the most points for sure. Yeah,
so would I. And next question is a good one from Basse, who listens all the way in Sweden. So big up Basse. He says, start Kulusevski or Brennan Johnson next game against Aston Villa. And is Brennan Johnson a starting player or a super sub to beat a somewhat tired defence with his pace and energy like he did against Palace? Because he adds on to say, I don't think that Kulu as a sub is as positive as Brennan is. So where are you standing with the Brennan Johnson-Kulusevski debate, Ben?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they've got the right balance at the moment of Kulusevski as the starter and then Johnson to come on and sort of when the game's a little bit more stretched and, uses pace and uses intelligent movement in behind, which again, I think is going to be key on Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did start him on Sunday because of that. Because like at Everton away, he went with Johnson over Kulusevski. So he had, Ange Postecoglou isn't afraid to give Johnson that opportunity. He did it off the back of the Brentford game, of course. That was why he rewarded with Johnson with the start. So maybe something similar again for Johnson on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised, but I do think he'll go with Kulusevski. And I think, like he says, I think that they've kind of got that right balance at the moment of Kulusevski being the main. That's his spot. And I think Johnson, as we go into next season, especially with more football, Spurs will be in Europe in some capacity next season. So the expectation on the squad grows. Obviously, there's going to be a far more demand in terms of the fixtures. So players like that, their legs are going to be far more vital in terms of rotation, etc. So we'll get more of a starting opportunity next season, I think, as well as he continues to grow and mature as a player. So that's kind of how I see it at the moment. I'd go with. I think that's the right way round. I think Johnson is more of the super sub and Kula as the starter for me.
Absolutely. And there's 2 more questions. I'm going to answer the last one. Actually, I'll do it now. What would your lineup be versus Aston Villa? Because obviously you've gone through your lineup. So assuming everyone's available, for me, obviously be Vicario, be Porro right back, Doggy left back, Van der Ven, Romero. Midfield would be Maddison, Basuma. I'm going to go with Sarr. I will miss out Bentancur, which is a shame. I just think that Villa will be a fast-paced game where the difference in the game will be transitions. I think Bentancur's currently lacking that little bit. So it's harsh, I know, but I would leave Bentancur out. I don't think Kulusevski, for me, is setting the world on fire, but I would be on the right purely because I want to bring Brennan Johnson later on in the game. Villa having to into Amsterdam in the week should be tired later on in the game, so I think we can really use Brennan Johnson to our advantage. And that leaves, obviously, Werner on the left and Son down the middle. Last question for you, Ben, is from THFC Wave. So big up THFC, who says, Kulusevski, better out wide or in midfield for you? I'm really stuck between this.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kulusevski's had a great impact on some of the games in midfield. I still think his best position is probably... I think that's a tough one. I think in terms of the longevity that we're going to have with Kulusevski is out wide because I don't think he dislodges Maddison as that number 10. But I do think his flexibility is really important in terms of in games we've seen when we're maybe chasing the game, which, like I said, we've gone behind quite a lot and we've gone back to kind of go in front of the game. I think being able to bring Johnson on and drop Kulusevski into that midfield as that sort of attacking 8 on the other side is a really positive tactical change for us and something that we've relied on quite a lot and something that has brought us a lot of joy. So it's a bit sitting on the fence, but I don't really know because Kulusevski, he's sort of spoken about the fact that he sees himself as a 10. He's went off the back of I think it was the Villa game where we lost. That was the first game where he started through the middle for Spurs in that number 10 position, and he sort of spoke about how much he loved it after the game. He's always seen himself as a 10. He likes playing in those sort of middle pockets. So it's a bit of an interesting one. I can't give an answer on that just yet.
No,
just yet, I don't think. Yeah, it's a tricky one to answer that because I think he's effective in both. But like you said, he's not going for his best moment in the game at the moment. But I do think a lot of the work that he does for us is massively underappreciated. I'm a big fan of Kulusevski wherever he plays. So,
yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ben. And that kind of wraps us up nicely for today's show. Got through all of your questions. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for tuning in. If you Spotify, Amazon Music, don't forget to give us a follow and a 5-star review. Your support will never go unnoticed. So thank you very much. If you are listening live on YouTube, smash that subscribe button to get to 2K. It'll be massively appreciated. As I said, the like button is free to do so. Turn the notifications bell on. Always keep up to date. And most importantly, do get involved in the comments because your opinion does matter. Ben, thank you very much for coming on this week's show. Obviously, just being you towards the end. So where can people find you for people who don't know?
Mate, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. I enjoyed that. You can find me, Ben Talks Football, on TikTok, Ben Bowman on Twitter, and we've just launched a new Spurs podcast. Me and Bill Hester. We've launched the Daring and Doing podcast, so you can find that Spotify, on the Daring and Doing YouTube channel as well. We've just launched on Apple Podcasts. We're about to actually record now off the back of this, so you can hear our thoughts on the Palace game probably tomorrow morning. So Daring and Doing is where you'll find me at the moment. Ben Talks Football on TikTok as well. And yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. I really enjoyed it as usual.
No, thank you very much. It's great to have you on. So go check Ben out on all socials. As I said, if you want to follow me, you can there, HarryScarf22. But most importantly, go check out the channel and make sure to follow Ben. Big up to everyone listening live on YouTube. But as we always say on this show, come on, you Spurs.
You were working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You've turned us into something new. And Postecoglou. You know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it, Ange. Postecoglou. We're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, he looks so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh.
This is an older song from us that really caught on. It's been sung by many fans at various different grounds, so really appreciate support on this one. Quite simply, it's about a guy who's ginger. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing.
There's not a soul out there, no one to hear my prayers. Give me a ginger from Sweden. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing. Give me a ginger from Sweden. Number 21, his name is Kulusevski. Give me a ginger from Sweden. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing. Give me a ginger from Sweden. Number 21, his name is Kulusevski.